I want to begin by thanking you for your good attention and for so many conversations afterwards and some of the things that y'all have shared with me. And it's been a joy to see the children here. I want to thank the elders for the invitation. I want to thank those that expressed interest in this topic. It's been good to renew old acquaintances from long ago. Steve and Sandy and I were down in school a long time ago, along with Mike and Craig, and so many other people here that I've either known in the past and other people that I've gotten to meet. You've fed me well, and those of you that stocked the house with snacks, and those of you that have fed me, if the goal was to send me back fatter, I'm afraid you succeeded. I'm going to have to spend some extra time at the gym next week. But it's been a joy to be here and to see the robustness and strength of this congregation and hear about the teaching program that you have here. And I thank you for this opportunity to be with you. We're going to be finishing up tonight. I'm going to be moving quickly because there's a lot of ground to cover. A lot of the points we're going to go over could use more time, but I'm going to try to hit several of them. I'm going to cheat in a few spots by referring you to where you can find some of this material online so as to not take up all our time here. But this is what we're talking about. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Child training. Not just child control, but child training. Parents, build, maintain, and protect your home like there are enemy forces attacking it, because they are. So be like Joshua. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Quick review for visitors that were not here before. We began on early child training with basic vocabulary, teaching a child that means that. If you'd like to see some on that, you can... Oh, this is the wrong set of slides. I sent a set of slides today that says Tuesday night. If you guys could swap that out, I'm going to go ahead and start on point 11, and we'll get down there. So if you would like to see some more on that point I just put there, if you go to Enlight Media, I want to recommend the work being done by these guys. Some of you know Jackson Sneed and Sam Peters and Andy Dieselkamp have been doing a lot of work. Partly they've been contacting older preachers before we are not here and putting material online, but they're also getting some younger preachers as well to go up to Illinois and film some things. And you can find them on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and look up Enlight Media. Look for the little logo. It's a candle with a blue background. And there's lots of good stuff on there. And that one particular point about no that we went over Sunday, it's there in a 5-minute or 8-minute thing on that site. We're going to go over and just click through some of the things we've talked about before. Mistakes we can make in parenting, like failing to discipline, rewarding misbehavior, expecting misbehavior, not being consistent, not controlling ourselves. Because if we're not in control of our own emotions, we're not going to do a good job of helping train that child. And sometimes, as one of the parents mentioned to me earlier today, there was a time where they need to just step away and wait a few minutes before going in and addressing the child, to have ourselves collected so that we're operating in their best interests, being in control of ourselves. Of course, we do not want to abuse children. We want to discipline them. We talked about that motivation. And if you're having trouble finding it, I sent it to Eastside Enlightener, and it says Tuesday. Oh, there we are. Very good. Thank you very much. We talked about settling for situation control instead of training the child, failing to use rod and reproof, assuming cultural norms, training them to disrespect instructions given calmly. And that brings us to tonight. Thank you very much. Part 2, and we're going to start with this. Fathers discouraging and provoking to wrath. So mothers can do this too, of course, but notice that Paul singles out fathers. Colossians 3:21. Fathers, provoke not your children, that they be not discouraged. Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, nurture them in the chastening and admonition of the Lord. Some of you, as we mentioned last night, nobody here grew up with the perfect parent in the perfect home. Okay, Jesus was perfect, we aren't. We're not the perfect parents. Our children are not the perfect children. But our children need to see us working together to serve God. Many of you grew up in a good home with people striving to serve God, loving you, and taking care of you. Some of you grew up in a dysfunctional home, and you chose to do something better for your life and for your children. And thanks be to God for your decision in that, and praise God. Some of you may have grown up in this type of home. There are people who grew up, a lot of people grow up without a father, but some people grow up with a father who it's basically criticism or nothing. If you did it right, if you worked hard, mowing the grass and pulling the weeds, it's not noticed. He doesn't care. But if you ran over a couple of flowers in the flower bed, you're in trouble. If you studied hard and you got an A, he doesn't care. But if you failed in the school calls, you're in trouble. That's a hard way to grow up. Sometimes those children will end up actually misbehaving just to get dad's attention. Years ago, I knew a family, very dysfunctional family. I won't get into all the levels of dysfunction. But one of the things in that family was the rejection of a baby by the father. And it left that baby going some very, very unhealthy directions later in life. And the mother lost track of him and never knew if he was even dead or alive anymore. Really horrible. But when he was in a juvenile reform school and still a little boy, he would get in trouble there. And he told his mom one day, he said, "Mom, do you know why I act bad at school?" They had security personnel in the rooms. And when these delinquent children would misbehave, the guards would seize the children and control them. He said, "The reason I act bad at school is so that those men will hold me." Children need love. Children need discipline. Children also need approval and love and joy and things like that. I remember one lady I knew, and as an adult, it just still pained her. I don't think maybe she had ever heard her father say, "I love you." And as an adult with her own family, that still pained her. I remember another mom with like teenagers, and I think she said, "One time my dad gave me a hug." Don't be that kind of father. Also, don't expect talents beyond their capacity. Expect a lot from your kids. As a rule, this is one of the problems in the United States of America. We're not expecting enough of young people. Young people can accomplish so many great things. Children can learn so much and do so much and achieve so much, both while they're young and teenagers and young people, and our society doesn't expect much of them at all. But don't expect what they can't do. If you decided your son is going to be an NFL middle linebacker and he weighs 125, that's not going to happen. If you dreamed that your daughter was going to be an opera star and she's tone deaf, that's not going to happen. But expect what they can do. One of the things that I've admired about parents with special needs children is how much love and support they give them while expecting them to do what they can do. So I used to study with a gentleman that told me this story about a Thanksgiving dinner one time. It was somebody at the Thanksgiving dinner that he'd not met before. I don't know how far away related, but he had not met this young man before, but he had no arms. He just had nubs. He didn't have a forearm and hands. And during the Thanksgiving dinner, he said he would, with his mouth, place his spoon underneath whatever he wanted to have a bite of, and with his nub, he would hit the spoon, flip it into his mouth, and catch it. He said, I just sat mesmerized through the meal. He said, at the end of dinner, there was a bigger mess around my plate than there was around his. And he said, afterwards, when you're having snacks at Thanksgiving, like fudge or whatever, his mom would just kind of walk by and leave something there on his shoulder. And when he got ready for it, he got it. I can't do that. I don't think you can do that. But just stop and think, what if that mom had decided, oh, he can't feed himself, and just sat there and spoon fed him or put him on an IV or something? She knew there were things that he couldn't do, but she let him do the things that he could do, and he got to where he excelled at things that you and I couldn't do. So remember that. Also, don't have the reaction with your children being just simply based on your mood. Like, if Junior sasses mom and dad's in one mood, he thinks it's funny. If he's in a bad mood, then he's in trouble. Don't do that. Cattle, I've heard that once you have an electric fence up, after a while, I've been told that you can turn off the electric fence because they've learned. But imagine being a cow in a field with a moving electric fence. You never know where it is. It's like you think it's over there, you stoop down to graze, and here it is. And some children grow up in a home like that. Don't let your children grow up in a home like that. Be there for them in all the ways that you should be. Number 12, failing to parent with joy. Have you ever been in a house that they've got rules and the rules are being followed, but nobody seems happy? Like, it's time for the meal. No elbows on the table. Say grace. Pass to the left. And all the rules are being followed, but nobody's happy. Look how many times the Bible talks about joy in the family, and just in these verses here. Rejoice in the wife of your youth, the husband told. And in relationship to the children, the father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He will have joy of him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her rejoice who gave birth to you, Proverbs 23. A joyful heart makes a cheerful face. But when the heart is sad, the spirit is broken. A cheerful heart has a continual feast. Better is a dish of vegetables where love is than fattened ox served with hatred. Proverbs 15, 13 through 17. The worthy woman, the law of kindness was on her tongue. And Proverbs 31 and Proverbs 17, a joyful heart is good medicine. A crushed spirit dries up the bones. And remember, in the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace. On this point, enjoy your kids. Have fun with your kids. Children are so much fun. 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4, they are so much fun. Have fun with your teenagers too. And I've been doing this in settings where I've got some parents, like in a classroom or something, or at a campsite. For a number of years I've been doing this. It's very interesting. You can do it mentally right now. Parents, I want you to stop and think for just a few seconds of a fond memory you have either with your father or mother. When you were growing up, what's a fond memory that you have? Now, I don't know what all you thought of, but when I'm in small scale like classes and groups and stuff, and I ask, it's been very interesting to hear. Nobody yet has said we spent $6,000 at Disney World. It's usually something very, very simple. Sometimes it's a little routine. Sometimes it's my dad and I, this one time each week, I would crawl up in the armchair with him and we would eat sardines and watch this one comedy together. Or Friday night, we had game night. Or Sunday night, Dad would make popcorn. Just simple little things, almost none of which, when the parent was doing it, that they would have ever guessed that's what my child's going to remember. One time, it was about a vacation. Somebody was on vacation, and they said suddenly it snowed, and we got out and we had a snowball fight. And that was a great memory. And how great that he did that instead of Dad saying, "Hey, can we stop and play in the snow?" "Nope, we got to be to such and such by such and such a time." What a missed opportunity. One guy did say when he went on a cruise with his dad, that involved, something of monetary value, but here's why. His parents were separated. They were divorced. His dad didn't have custody. He only got limited time with his dad. His dad won a cruise for two. And so he took his son. And of course, he had a fond memory of that. But we need to understand, so much of the time we're trying to financially do what we need to family do. There needs to just be joy and routine and pleasant and good things going on in the home. All right, number 13, all play and no work. Yeah, there needs to be time for play, but we don't expect very much out of kids in this culture, and it ends up showing. They need to work. Some of you grew up on a farm. I think if we all had grown up on a farm, like some of you did, we would probably be stronger people in general. Kids that grow up on a farm, they get to play, but there's work they have to do. They have to do this chore and that chore and that chore, and then afterwards they can be out on the four-wheeler, they can go, fishing in the pond or whatever, but there's work to be done. That's important. So many kids now, and I was seeing some statistics about this lately. There's a book, it was a New York Times bestseller. It's not written from a Christian point of view. He believes in evolution and different things. But it was a New York Times bestseller. It's about the anxious generation. That's the title of the book. And it shows with just graphs and numbers and things how much mental health has declined since the smartphone. He points out throughout human history, children played. And they played outside. And that involves sometimes getting hurt or embarrassed or learning social cues or anything. But they played outside and learned lessons from that. He said, for the first time in history, children are not playing with each other and they're not outside. They're on a screen. And he shows the graphs, and you just see the change in mental health and the increase in suicides and anxiety and depression and different things. I want to mention one thing here. There's a lot I could say about this. I'm going to mention just one thing. Some years ago, a good Christian girl, she was single at the time, her girlfriends, Christian girls, several of them were married. And this is what she said. Of all of my friends that got married, and they all married guys from church, she said, not a single one of them is in a happy marriage. Largely because these girls married what they thought was a man, and they found out he was a boy, and not a good boy, not a well-trained, responsible boy. Two things in particular have been problematic, and it both involves the internet or electronics. Young men that are just devoted to gaming. I've heard them called, the wives of some of those called halo widows. They're just more interested in gaming than anything else. And pornography. Parents, take this seriously. Protect your children. The damages out there online, it's inconceivable the amount of filth and trash and the number of people pushing it online and all the different dangers on there. For sake of time, I don't have time to go much more into this, but I would like to recommend, this is one of the spots where I'll recommend one of these in-light media things. This is on our devices keeping us from real life. Because so many people now, they're not really living real life. They're living a fake life, watching fake people with fake parts and a bunch of filters, and it's not even real. Don't let your children get caught in that trap. And instead of taking the time to watch, it's only 5.5 minutes long, but later if you want to just go to YouTube, search for In-Light Media and take a look at that one. Mistake number 14, mistaking taking them to church for bringing them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Years ago, while doing this series, I was asked to go to a hospital and visit a brother that was there. I'd never met the gentleman. And it was really sad because as we were talking, all of his children were roughly middle-aged. And he had 4 of them. And he said to me, not a single one of them is faithful. And that's terribly sad. But what he said next made it even sadder. He said, I don't know what happened. I took them to church all those years. And in those words, I could see what happened. Look at his state. Look at these Bible verses and then look at that statement. Ephesians 6, fathers, bring up your children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. It doesn't say, fathers, take your kids to a Bible class and they'll bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. It says, fathers, bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Deuteronomy 6 says, you shall teach them diligently to your sons. Talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. Some of you are in the medical field. If I show up at the hospital, at the ER, with a starving, emaciated child, and you're like, quick, get some nutrients into him. What's happened? And I say, I don't know. I fed him Sunday breakfast and a Wednesday night snack every week. You know what happened. He needed more nutrition than that. Now listen to that statement again. He said, none of them are faithful. I don't know what happened. I took them to church. And that was heartbreaking because think of the number of hours and the number of influences coming at a child and an adolescent and a teenager and then a college student. And that's supposed to be offset by a couple of 45-minute things? Don't make that mistake. Number 15, going into defense mode when our children are wrong. I want to say a word here about mama bears. There's a time for mama bear. Most of us know if there's some bear cubs over here and mama bear's over there, don't get in between her and the cubs. Don't threaten those cubs. There's an instinct that God puts in men, but also in women to take care of our children. It gets twisted, however, when instead of protecting her children, she denies that they ever do anything wrong. There's a type of mother who acts like her son is the most important thing in the world. And he's not. None of us are. God's the most important thing. Years ago, there was a school and they were trying to improve self-esteem. And so they passed around a box and it went to every student and they said, look in this box and you'll see the most important thing in the world. And you get to the box and you open up, there's a mirror. in the bottom of the box. It's me! I'm the box. No, you're not. And when a mom acts like her son is the most important thing in the world, the rest of the world is not going to be on that program. His boss that's going to fire him doesn't think he's the most important person in the world. The women he mistreats are not going to think he's the most important person in the world. The state troopers that take him to jail are not going to think he's the most important person in the world. And lately, I've been hearing about moms that go in with their sons for the job application, and after he gets fired, they go in wanting to talk to the boss and demand that their son get their job back. That's not loving a child. That's spoiling a child on so many levels. Defending them when they're wrong, denying that they did anything. John Bosworth, some of you may know him, really, really good man, lives up near Canada. And in his retirement, he drives a school bus. And he told me about one day he called a mom because this one kid is taking a permanent marker and riding on the bus. So he calls the mom. And the mom, oh no, my boy did not do that. Yes, ma'am, he did. Nope, he would not do that. You're mistaken. It had to be somebody else. He wouldn't do that. John said, would you like to see the video camera? Because there's a camera on the bus. And this is the funny thing. After saying, nope, he would never do that. Nope, it wasn't him. As soon as she found out there was video, what did you do that made him do it? She didn't even seem to pause to be surprised he did it. It was just this automatic, no, he didn't, no, he didn't, no, he didn't. There's video. Who can I blame? Who can I blame? That's not doing any good for that boy. Redirecting blame. 1 Timothy 5:21, do things without partiality. I remember one time when one of my boys was acting up in Bible class. And so the teacher came to me. He said he keeps crawling under the table and he won't come out and stay in his seat. I don't get mad at her. My son wouldn't do that. Well, no, that's my friend. This is my friend, and she knows that I don't want him doing that. I was thankful that she let me know because I wasn't in the class to see it. So now I know what he's doing and I could address it. That's not the time for me to pretend he didn't do it. That's the time for me to thank my friend, that Bible class teacher who let me know, because I'm trying to raise a good boy, and now he's a good man. Woe to those that call evil good and good evil. And if you start a pattern of bailing them out, don't be surprised when they come to expect it, in a very literal sense. Mom, I'm in jail. Can you bail me out? Number 16, thinking if we don't allow this, they might rebel and leave the church. Never gone over maybe to a friend's house and you're smelling something strange coming, from the boys' room, or you see some posters in there, or you see the daughter walking out just dressed very inappropriately and you're allowing it. Well, if we don't allow it, they might rebel and leave the church. I got a question for you. What good is being in the church if they're not in the Lord? The church at Laodicea had become lukewarm. What did Jesus say about it? I'm going to spew you out of my mouth. What good does it do to be worldly people sitting in a worldly church? I think Satan's fine with that. We need to be in the Lord. Do you not know that friendship with the world is hostility toward God? Entertainment, attire, interests. Let's talk about clothing for just a minute. You remember in Genesis 3, when they realized they're naked, sometimes you see a painting with like a fig leaf or two. No, they sewed fig leaves together, and the Hebrew word is like a girdle or something that went around you, kind of like an apron. And God put some real clothes on them. Exodus 28:42, this is an interesting passage. It's talking about the garments of the priests, and some of it was decorative, like a tie. Person isn't lacking clothing if they don't have a tie on. And it said the head tire, the cap of the priest, the purpose, it said 2 verses before this, was for glory and for beauty. But then it said, give them linen breeches that go from the waist to the thigh to cover the flesh of their nakedness. Now that's inclusive, not exclusive. If it's from below the waist to above the thigh, that's nothing. And you can look up like in International Standard Bible Encyclopedia and see like a drawing of this type of thing. And it's about like a pair of today's basketball shorts. Now, I remember when I was a kid, basketball shorts back then were ridiculous. Some of you have seen footage of early Michael Jordan or early Larry Bird. They had ridiculous shorts back then. But these things were about this length. Sometimes people think, well, but we're going to the beach. Let me tell you, is there anywhere in the Bible where it talks about how somebody got dressed to go swimming or go to the beach? Yes. John chapter 21. The fishermen are out at night in the boat, and they've stripped down to, they've got their garments on here, but they don't have their outer garment on. And when they realize Jesus is over there on the beach, before Peter gets out of the boat, what did he do? He put some clothes on because he didn't want to show up over there on the beach in front of Jesus without his clothes on. Then he jumped in the water. We excuse all kind of things because they say, well, it's this or that. People would not answer the door in their underwear, but they'll go out in public in less than that because it's a different color or something, and it's called a swimsuit. Way too much exposure going on. What's the purpose of a security envelope? It shows what the postman needs to be able to see, your name and address, and it hides your social security number or banking account information. That's not his business. This is not hiding anything because it's showing what's available and advertising it. These two fences are very different. This one increases the property of your home. It's a nice fence, and it also keeps that creepy neighbor from looking at your wife. That guy, he's not trying to hide what he's got. He's trying to show it off. This type of clothing, if you even look, I went this afternoon, well, let's do this real quick. There's a difference between that and this. We got too many people dressing like Oscar Mayer Bacon these days. And I just went today online, Madison County Sheriff's Department. No short shorts, mini skirts, halter tops, see-through blouses. Why? Not because they're running a church, but because they know how that affects the men. Number 17, ignoring the effect of evil companions. 1 Corinthians 15:33, evil companions corrupt good morals. Proverbs 1, my son, listen to your father and mother. Stay away from the sinners. There's bad influences in person, and there are bad influencers online. There is so much corruption online from people making money trying to influence your children. And a lot of it is destructive and dangerous and wicked. The carnality, the narcissism, the artificiality, the false values, the perversion. And we've talked before on Sunday about pornography. I mentioned a passage, but I want to read this passage here tonight. Turn with me to Proverbs. And I just want to take an aside here and talk to both the young men in the audience, and it's addressed to young men, but young ladies, flip it, because there's dangerous men out there you need to not be getting tied up with either. So you just change the gender and flip it in the other direction. And also for the husbands here, because some of you work a job where there are some really immoral women there that are fishing to get somebody's attention. And sometimes they throw their lure your way. Listen to this text. I remember one time, I'll get into it after we get in the text here. Proverbs 5, verse 1. My son, be attentive to my wisdom, incline your ear to my understanding, that you may keep discretion and your lips may guard knowledge. The lips of a forbidden woman drip honey. Her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps follow the path to Sheol. She does not pander the path of life. Her ways wander. She does not know it. Now, O sons, listen to me. Do not depart from the words of my mouth. Keep your way far from her. Do not go near the door of her house. And that includes her website, her fans-only site, all of that stuff. Don't go near her door. I remember one time working with a young couple, and they've come to me because she found the notes that are being passed back and forth between him and this girl at work, who's dressing very provocatively and trying to get his attention, and she's got his attention, and they're writing back and forth about how good they look and everything, and this is what he said. Because look back at this verse here. The lips of a forbidden woman drip honey. Her speech is smoother than oil. Girls know how immature guys' egos can be. They know the types of things that you can say to get a guy's attention. It's like for those of you guys that fish. You've got a lure that you really like for smallmouth bass. Because you know those smallmouth bass aren't smart enough. They're going to fall for it. And so when she's flattering you, and you're like thinking, oh, I am so special. No, you're not. This is not the first time she threw that lure. She said the same thing to somebody else a few days ago, and if you say, I'm married, I'm not, she's not brokenhearted. She's not going to join a nunnery. She's going to throw that same lure at somebody else. Later in Proverbs, say, many are her slain. But this guy, this is what he said. Well, a lot of guys at church just don't know what it's like to be young and handsome. So it was just, how can she help herself? The trashiness of that girl's character and the trashiness of his being entwined by it didn't mean that he was special. How many men has she treated that way or said those things about? Let's proceed. Stay away from her. Don't go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others and your years to the merciless, lest strangers take their fill of your strength. To get to know people in the community, I play ball a lot up at the Y. And some of these guys, they're complaining about all their child support and stuff. I'm paying $1,000 a month in child support and different things. And they've got maybe a baby mama here, maybe a baby mama there. Do you think those baby mamas are taking all that money and putting it in a trust fund for the child's college? No, a lot of that's going to be partied with the new boyfriend. Read this text again. Lest you give your honor to others, your ears to the merciless, lest strangers take their fill of your strength, and your labors go to the house of a foreigner. At the end of your life, you groan when your flesh and body are consumed. Body consumed. Sexually transmitted diseases. I could tell some tales about some people I've had to study with on that. I won't do that. You say, how I hated discipline, and my heart despised reproof. I did not listen to the voice of my teachers. 14, I'm at the brink of utter ruin. Verse 15, drink water from your own cistern, lip flowing waters from your own well. Should your springs be scattered abroad, streams of water in the street? Let them be for yourself alone, not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. A lovely deer, a graceful doe, let her breasts fill you at all times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. Again, that didn't say rejoice in the wife while she's a youth. Rejoice in that bride that you took and you said your vows to before God, before your parents, before her parents, and before her. Keep those vows. Honor those vows and keep rejoicing in that wife of your youth. 20, why should you be intoxicated, my son, with a forbidden woman in the embrace of a bosom of an adulteress? For a man's ways are before the eyes of the Lord, and he ponders all his paths. The iniquities of wicked ensnare him. And I'll say this before we leave this subject. Used to, the typical prostitute at least had to endure the physical presence of the customers she got money from. Today's internet prostitutes, they don't ever have to come within 100 miles of you. They can just rake in the revenue however it's coming, and they don't have to say hi to you or touch you or see you because they care nothing about you. Keep your way far from that. Number 18, failing to train humility. I'm going to have to go real fast here because I want to get a few more things in here. I have seen families that had a lot of strengths in a lot of ways, but they were so proud of their sons, and they just did not train any humility into them. One of them later came to me, and he said, well, let me back up here. I want to try to make this quick. Two of these young men, both good Bible teachers, good song leaders, led studies, all kind of things. But the ego in each case, here's a problem. Where does corn grow good? In a sunny field, right? What about that stuff that grows in the bottom of the crisper if you haven't cleaned it out in a while in your fridge? That doesn't grow real well out in a sunny field, does it? It grows well in that environment. Pride is a sin that can grow and thrive in a church and in a religious family. If you don't believe that, just look at the history of the Bible. Korah, one of the Levites. You remember the pride there? The Pharisees, all their works they do to be seen of men. If we raise our children, oh, you sang that song so much better than all the other boys. Oh, you're the best at the memory verses. Oh, nobody gave a better talk than you did. Don't do that. Encourage them, but don't let them get arrogant and proudful. One of these young men, while he was a teenager, I told him, I said, you've got a problem with your ego. He was 15 at the time. This is his response. I'm a teenager. Of course I got an ego. Later, he was at a congregation, and they were thinking about having him work there in evangelism with him. Well-known preacher called me on the phone asking me about it. I assumed he'd given me his reference. And I said, well, I'll tell you what I told him. But first, here's some good things. I said, this. Those are some qualities. But I said, I'm going to tell you what I told him. He's got an ego problem. And this well-known gospel preacher laughed. I said, oh, I don't think that'll be a problem. Really? Do you remember who Jesus was most upset with in the Gospels? It wasn't the humble, repentant prostitutes and sinners. It was the arrogant, prideful Pharisees. A few years later, he came back and he's mad at me. He said, you told two preachers that I had an ego problem. I said, no, I told one. Well, how'd the other one know? I said, if I leave the gym and I don't take a shower and I stink, I go into another room, nobody has to tell them I stink. They can tell when I'm carrying the problem around. And also the fact that the first guy told him, you can tell what he thought was funny that it should even be a concern. At some point, it apparently come down to the point, well, Scott Smelser told me. The other one, oh. I remember him telling me one time, I was talking to him about his pride and his arrogance, and he said, and he doesn't mean this in an erotic way, he means this in a condescending way. He said, I look at everybody else like they're just sitting there in their underwear. And he told me, he said, I'm a psychopath. But his father was so proud of him and the things that he would do. But then one day he came to me and he said, they worshiped in another state at this time. And his father came to me, he said, I'm having problems with my son, who's a grown man by then. I said, well, let me ask you some questions. I said, is he intelligent? Oh, yes. Is he this? Oh, yes. Is he that? Oh, yes. And after listing his qualities, and I said, is he humble? And the dad dropped down and he goes, no. Don't raise children like that. Self-respect is a good thing. Self-respect that also has respect for other people. Pride is an ugly thing. Arrogance. In Proverbs 6, what is the first thing in the list of 7 abominations to God? A haughty look. Don't raise children like that. By the way, quick fool test. You remember the COVID test? It took 15 minutes. This one's real quick. You can diagnose yourself and your children in like 10 seconds. Think about your children. I'm about to ask a question. You can just diagnose them real quick. What does Proverbs say over and over and over and over? Correct a fool and he'll love you for it. He'll be wiser. Correct a wise man, he'll love you for it and he'll be wiser. Correct a fool and he'll hate it. Do your children appreciate correction or do they hate it? If you got one of them that just hates it, they just tested positive for foolishness. Oh, what am I going to do? Well, you're going to train them out of it. That's what you're going to do. And you can test yourself right now too. Do you hate to be corrected? And if you're sitting here and you realize, yeah, I really do. I need to not be a fool. I need to change that. Congratulations, you're already getting better. Because you just listened to some correction, and even though it wasn't pleasant to hear, you listen to it. Fools don't. Train humility. We need to be humble. 19, focusing on home income instead of home outcome. We talked about this on Sunday and just the emphasis on getting that bigger, nicer, better house. Nothing wrong with a big, nice house, but if it's at the price of spending time with your children, no. Proverbs 15, better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure turmoil with it. Better is a dish of vegetables where love is than a fattened ox served with hatred. It's the home, not the house. The family, not the stuff. We live in a culture that spends exorbitant amounts on weddings, and then there's a divorce. I got a buddy of mine. I was studying with him just recently from the gym. He said his wedding was $40,000. But he's also got a $4,000 with his retainer with his lawyer because he's already had him start drawing up the divorce papers and deciding whether or not, to file them. Putting more planning into the wedding than the marriage is foolish. And putting more emphasis on the house and the income instead of time to raise the children is foolish. Do our homes reflect scriptural priorities or cultural priorities? Older women, the Bible says, train the young women to love their husbands, love their children, be sober-minded, chaste, workers at home, kind, being in subjection to their own husbands. Underestimating threats, corruption from the entertainment media, from the internet, offenders, predators, old and young. There's more predators out there, I believe, because they're getting stuff over the internet and that just increasing their appetite. They're all over the place. Educational agendas, presuming medical solutions for behavior issues. Some medicines are necessary. Some are life-saving. Some improve quality of life. Some have side effects. But we also have a lot of doctors trained from a system that says we're an accidental arrangement of chemicals. And if you are trained by a system that we're an accidental arrangement of chemicals and we're not acting right, then what's the solution? Change the chemicals. That's forgetting about selfishness and sin and judgment. Feminism agenda is blurring the gender roles. The Bible talks about the difference between men and women. We're not to dress like the other. We're not to have the hairstyle of the other. We're not to try to be the other. Declining standards of self-responsibility, conduct, accountability. Last couple here, I'm going to see if you don't mind, I'm going to go just real quickly through these last couple points. Lowering the bar from the firstborn to the baby. This is really easy to do. One time, I was talking to a very nice lady, and her daughter, she and her husband had a good family business. They had a nice home. They had good kids. They're very active in the church. And the other child lives in the garage, smokes pot, doesn't have a job. And I said, is he the younger one? And she said, how did you know? Well, it's not absolute, but there's a tendency. And you can see it even in Jesus's story about the prodigal son. Which one goes away and wastes all the money and lives a prodigal lifestyle? He didn't have to say what age they were, but he said it was the younger one. By the way, which one was self-righteous and arrogant and unforgiving? It was the older one. That's really who it's targeted against. But there's some reasons for this. And if you'll think in your extended family, by the way, there are people that you'll meet that have a firstborn personality and they're lastborn. And there are people that were firstborn that have a lastborn personality and stuff. But there are some traits that are kind of common. And here's some of the reasons real quickly. Moms, when you had your first child, how much of your parenting time did that child get? 100%. Child number, in our case, 6, how much time of mom's parenting time did child number 6 get? More than the other ones, but not all of it because it wasn't all available. Pacifier. Moms, you remember when that first baby was born and you were being so careful and that pacifier falls on the floor at 7-Eleven or something. Did you put it back in his mouth? No. You threw that away and probably from the shower gave him a brand new fresh one. Later, you might scald it and sterilize it. Later, cold water. Later, you might slap it on your leg. Later, child number 5, right back in it goes. Why? Because you learned that they're tougher than you think. Because with child number 1, you thought, if he gets a germ, he'll die. And then you found him eating out of the cat food bowl, pulling the gum off the bottom of a boot or something. And you realize God made him pretty resilient. So here's what happens. We realize, oh, wow, that wasn't as hard as I thought. And child 1 didn't survive because you sterilized the pacifier. But with child number 1 also, he had to say thank you to grandma before he could eat the cookie. He had to say please before he could get it. But then just mentally you think, wow, this child came out great. Everybody sees this child and say, oh, he's so good. Wow, this is easier than I thought. And then we let up. And this one doesn't say thank you, and this one doesn't say please, because you thought, oh, it's easy. One of those was really vital. The other is good, but not as vital. Also, the firstborn is born into a world of adults. Have you ever thought about that? Your firstborn comes in, everybody in the house is an adult. So you know what behavior they mimic? Adult behavior. By the time my number 6 came into the house, there was a bunch of kids too. That's just part of life. And firstborn is born, and do you remember how eager you were for each step to happen? I can't wait for the first smile, for the first step, for the first word, to get them potty trained. I can't wait. And what some parents do is by the latter ones, they think, I don't want them to grow up too fast. They'll leave them in diapers long. It's cute. It's not cute if he's 12. And so later, somebody's asking mom, oh, how's this one doing? Oh, he's doing great. He just got a promotion. He and his wife just bought a house. They're expecting their 3rd child and everything. Oh, great. How's this one doing? Oh, he's doing well. And how's this one doing? Well, his probation officer said he's doing better this time. And, we're not pushing him to get a job yet and stuff and that type of thing. But eventually the older ones are mad at mom because she bought him a car. And they say, what? He's a bum. And she says, don't you say that about my... And you know what word is next? Baby. He's 34. He's not a baby. So give your young one what the firstborn also needed. We talked about this before, so I'm not going to go into it in detail there. Our time is up. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. If I'm not going to take time to explain this, but I made enough mistakes and this helped me a lot in my family. It's something we call the improvement game. And sometimes the kids would ask for it. They say, hey, can we play the improvement game? If you want to find out what that is, Inlight Media, Andy did an interview with me. If you go to YouTube, do Inlight Media. It's kind of a long interview, but one of the first things we talked about was this. It was good for me. And I'll just say that it involved the whole family sitting down and both giving constructive and areas that can be improved, and just all of us listening and working together. And I found it very, very, very helpful. I based it on Revelation 2 and 3, where Jesus would tell the church what they're doing well at and what they need to improve on. And we involved the whole family from the 2-year-old on up. And we all went around the room and talked about where we've improved and where we still need to improve. And it was very helpful for me. If you want to hear, this is kind of like in 1 Corinthians 7. I have no commandment from the Lord. He didn't say do it this way, but I'm just telling you I found this effective. We need to be honest and humble with our kids. This was a way that helped me a lot. Parents, take the time. Teach them to do right. Train them to do right. Expect them to do right. Build, maintain, protect your home. Children are a heritage of the Lord. You got some wonderful kids here, and God bless you as you raise them and prepare them to go out and do the same thing in their home and for their children. As for me and my house, let us serve the Lord. If you're subject anyway, won't you come as we stand and sing?